Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first ever installment of Rival Reality Check. A fantastic name, I know. An even better name is the name of this new collaboration on the LNobbins YouTube channel. It's Tom Little, Liverpool fan extraordinaire, joined by LNobbins. Together, we are Little Nob, as you can probably tell by the thumbnail. It's a very professional setup, and it's a very professional, brilliant name. Don't even worry about it. But yes, if you don't know Tom, then what you're doing with your life, we regularly appear on Judge Mo's channel. Tom is a very intelligent Liverpool fan who's got a very good analytical and tactical brain. And the whole point of these rival reality check shows is to invite on guests who we know we can have a good conversation with and a good analytical debate and chat with. Tom, mate, thank you for becoming the first ever guest.
I'm honoured, mate. I'm honoured. I mean, I've seen the very professional setup you've got there. I mean, I think the people need to know exactly how this was pitched to me. Nobbins texted me one day and went, "Do you want to show the world our little knob?" Just out the blue. We hadn't talked for about through text for a couple of weeks, and it was just, "Do you want to show the world our little knob?" And that was when I knew we were onto something pretty decent. But yeah, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to have some nice civil discussions about football because we don't really get to do that very often in the scene. So this should just be a nice way to spend the Friday.
Exactly, yeah. So, guys, this is also going to be a back and forth with you guys in the chat. We want this to be, in addition to the general themes and topics that we've got, I also want to make it as interactive as possible. So, if you've got any questions or comments or just thoughts in general, certain topics that you'd like us to touch on, then please do let us know in the chat. You don't have to super chat to get involved. I want everyone to be as involved as possible. Jack immediately asking who on earth is this Tom guy. You know who he is, Jack. You play pro clubs with him, you fraudster. Ridiculous Glazers, Tab, fantastic. Hello, Mad Dog. Yes, that is indeed the name, Mad Hatter. So one of the first sort of overarching topics I'd like to discuss with Tom, first of all, is because the title of this video is, chaos versus control. Klopp's style of football normally associated with a chaotic nature, Pep's control-based. Do you have a preference in terms of play style? Do you think that one is better? Do you think one is better than the other? Is one better than the other in terms of, winning leagues, for example? And could you also just give us a bit of an insight into how Liverpool have been tactically setting up this season?
Yeah, I mean, I've always preferred a little bit more chaos. I've always preferred more defensive footballs. Therefore, you have less possession in a sense. So you've got to be more clinical on your counter attack and stuff. I've always preferred that than possession based football. What one's better to win a title? A possession based style, a controlling style, is probably more sustainable
Oh, he used the S
in
word.
terms of. Yes, I know. I've had to use that word. It's more sustainable in terms of it's less energy sapping. You probably don't need as deep a squad in a sense because you're controlling the tempo of the game. You don't have to work at 100 miles an hour every single minute of every single game, covering, doing this, that, and the other. So that one's probably gets the slight edge when it comes down to which is the best for winning a title. But I've always preferred the more chaotic style because that's just what I enjoy watching. I think it requires a lot of underrated skill to be able to maintain that at such a high level across a season. This year we have been probably the furthest away from that chaotic style that Jurgen Klopp was renowned for when he came in. We've probably been the furthest away. We've probably been as close to a controlling style as we've ever been under Jurgen Klopp in terms of, in an ideal world, we are playing a 3-2-5 in build up, trying to use a midfield box to ensure we've always got the right options for passing.
I wonder where he got that
Very
idea
much,
from.
yeah. But there's still the glimmers, the moments of a Liverpool of old. I think we are in terms of the three teams, in the title race. We're the team that is the most direct.
Hmm.
We're the team that is probably, I'm not going to say the most lethal off counter attacks because we miss all of them, but we're the most incisive with them. We're very well structured on our counter attacks and know where to be and how to move on them. It's just we can't finish them. So there's still the elements of an old Liverpool team there, but with the midfield profiles we brought in and certain players getting more of an influential role in the team and what their skill sets provide, I feel we've gradually started to move away from what Klopp is known for to a more
Yes.
controlling thing. And I do partly think that is contributed, not massively, but partly as to why I think Jurgen has decided to call it a day himself because he doesn't coach this style.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, I was going to ask, is it fair? Is it fair and reasonable to say that it's? I don't want to sound disrespectful here. Is it easier to? Is it easier for Klopp to coach that philosophy, i.e., gegenpress, more chaotic, than it is to coach, let's say, an Arteta or Pep Guardiola style? By which I mean, can you get away with it with lesser players? So, for example, if we think of what is Liverpool's best midfield trio, it's Fabinho, Wijnaldum, Henderson.
Mhm.
Stark contrast to City's of Fernandinho, David Silva, Kevin De Bruyne. Obviously, much more technical players in that respect. Is that an unfair thing of me to say, or is there something in the idea that it's from a player perspective, and certainly from a technical level, it's a bit trickier to play a Pep style than a Klopp style? What are your thoughts on that?
No, I actually agree with you. I think I don't know if I'm saying it the correct way. I think Klopp is the ultimate floor raiser at a football club. He can turn bad players or he can make bad players or technically limited players look immense. But his management style and the way his teams play, I'll put it this way: Jurgen Klopp manages through emotion. He's a very passionate guy. He's a very emotional guy. His tactics, therefore, embody that. It's a very passionate, a very emotional, a very sort of hectic style of play that is what the manager is. Whereas I think Pep is more cool, Pep is more composed, Pep is more, unflappable, more organized, and his teams are a representative of that in terms of dominating possession, having clear, set attacking patterns that they'll try and execute. And if that doesn't work, they just switch to plan B or plan C. A manager can only coach what they know. And I think Klopp knows the emotional gegenpress. Pep knows the controlling how to kill a team without even running, sort of thing.
Mm.
Something that will never happen, but I would love to see happen is Pep try and coach the team that Klopp had, and Klopp try and coach the team that Pep had,
Yeah.
just to see if they would cave in and go, right, we'll just stick with what they do because that's what works,
Yeah.
or are they going to try and put their mark on it? Because they were so starkly contrasting. But I think that's why, I mean, it's biased there, but I think that's why it was the best rivalry in terms of quality the Premier League's ever seen. Not in terms of emotion, because for a rivalry, I think if you want a really intense rivalry, the two teams need to hate each other.
Mm.
Our managers loved each
Yeah,
other.
where you had
The,
you had
you
Van
would
Dijk and
you
De
wouldn't have
Bruyne
to say
talking about how they took their kids to the same school and that sort of thing. So yeah, they there was no
yeah, and they
hatred
all
there.
go on holiday together. Whereas, like when you compare it to the Mourinhos and the Wengers who were sitting there in press conferences bad mouthing each other. So in terms of a vicious rivalry, it wasn't that. But in terms of the overall quality of team and the level that those rivalries reached, I do think Man City versus Liverpool was the highest quality because
Mm-mm.
of the way them two styles contrasted. I don't think any other team has caused Pep more problems than this Liverpool team. I don't think any other manager has caused Pep more problems than Jurgen Klopp. In the same way that for us, no other team and manager have caused us more problems than Pep and City. That's why I think it worked so well.
Yeah, 100%. I think that the clash in 17-18 was probably the biggest example of that in the Champions League, where City were just blitzed and we just couldn't respond. Musty with a interesting comment says, as a neutral, it's probably more entertaining to watch chaos ball, but I enjoy watching because Musty's a City fan, I enjoy watching my team play possession-based football. It's probably biased because I've watched Pep for a solid 7 years. And this is a debate I've had with Mo for many occasions, how he says how he finds it boring and blah, blah, blah. But the crux always comes with like Mo and other people, in my opinion, comes to you don't find the football boring, you just find the prospect of the result boring because you know that City are probably going to win. that's more so why you're bored. If Liverpool, let's for argument's sake say Liverpool play more exciting football, if the result was a guarantee every single week, I think that people would be coming to the same conclusion. Who are of that school of thought? Anyway, but that's my sort of thoughts, and I don't like when people say City play boring football. I think it's a bit silly. Formidable Centurion says, sorry, Tom, Pep wins trophies, and that's what every club and fans want. Yes, spending money wisely.
Oh, I'm not going to argue that.
No, yeah,
Pep is the greatest manager of all time. There's a reason why, when I've been asked about it recently, I've said you can't. People make it out that all you need to do to beat Pep is just try harder. No, you could try the hardest you've ever done. You could put together a team that every other year would win the Premier League. But if he's up against Pep, he's probably not going to do it because Pep is just Pep. There's a reason why only ever 3 managers have beaten him to a title, and he's been a manager for what is it? Near on 20 years now.
2009 was this first season. What 2008-9? So yeah, that's like 16 years.
And only 3 managers have beaten him to a title in that time. One of them I don't even count because it was 16-17, and he was never winning a title with that team. So you had Mourinho having to get 100 points and Liverpool having to get 99 to beat him to a title. 100% he's the GOAT. I won't ever argue that.
Yeah. See, this is why we get Tom on, guys, because he knows Pep's status. 16-17 was wild because that was like, I don't know if people were expecting Pep to work wonders, but I mean that guy had, I think the average fullback age was like 32. We had Sanya, Kolarov, Zabaleta, Clichy, Mangala. A clear out was needed, and I guess that comes into my next. That's a nice little segue into another thing I wanted to ask you, and it's something that you and I've discussed before. In my opinion, City are just going to get stronger in terms of next season. I can see a 17-18 style transfer window where there's sort of like 2, 3, 4 proper first teamers brought in. You know, like look at his face, a proper Gundogan replacement. You know, a proper long-term De Bruyne replacement, proper offensive fullbacks, that sort of thing. How difficult is it going to be for the next Liverpool manager to compete with that? And is it possible to compete with that if we assume City are going to get better? Is there something that can be done, or are we going to see a Liverpool situation where, as with Fergie and United, for example, Wenger and Arsenal, is there going to be this massive fall-off capitulation out in the wilderness for a season or two? What are your thoughts on that?
It all depends on who comes in. Obviously, my boat is very much the Ruben Amorim boat. I've been on that boat for over a year now in terms of he should be the guy to replace Jurgen Klopp. He's the guy who would stand the best chance. But if Pep Guardiola... The only thing that is giving me the tiniest little smidgen of hope is the news that Pep Guardiola might not extend beyond 2025. That is the balancer in this Premier League. If he extends beyond that point and he's got Paqueta, Bruno G, Musiala, players like that, we cannot compete. We cannot.
I think, thankfully, I mean, Ayushi says it here, so much noise about Guardiola and Chicky leaving, it's annoying. I think that's a lot of hogwash from the sounds of it. I don't know how, I don't think that's true, to be honest.
I don't see why he would leave, to be honest. Even though, like, other people, there's no reason to leave unless he had this innate desire to go manage a national team or something. There's no reason to leave City. So that would make it really hard to compete with City, especially if you get the right signings in. I'm always going to give the new manager the first season to figure it out. I have minimum expectations, obviously. The squad is still good enough, even for a new manager to come in and get the top 4 with it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it has been title challenging this season. It could win a title. Probably won't, but it could do mathematically. So it is in that ilk. So a new manager coming in, there will be a drop off. They will need time to figure stuff out, but I'm hoping that he'll get the right backing. And first year, it's about making sure you get top 4, give me a good run in the Champions League, show me that you can compete on both stages. And then from that point, it's on pushing forwards.
Yeah.
I feel that the one thing I will say we have better than City is and it's not to downplay what City's guys are, because they're very good at their jobs as well. I just feel we have the pioneers for the guys upstairs in terms of the data analytics and the director of football and stuff. Michael Edwards was wanted by fucking everyone, bar City. and
Mm.
that was because you already had a set one. But he was wanted by everyone, and we got him back. The data analytics guys that we've got, they've been here for years. They were some of the pioneers. When you look at what this group of analytics team and this group of recruitment staff achieved together in terms of transfer success for a 4-year period, it was ridiculous. There was one failure, and that was Naby Keita.
Mm.
That was it. Every other signing was a relative success to a monstrous success. Bringing them back in and giving them free reign, but with increased, money. I'm going to say increased profits, increased revenue, so they don't have to just stick within the £30 million range. They can go up to the 50 or the £60 million range. That could be the thing that pulls us back, but it won't be we build a team that can compete with City. It will be we build a team that is the second best in the league, and the new manager comes in and is just about able to get there. And City have an off year. Because if City are on it, we could do all that. If Pep Guardiola's on it, Pep Guardiola's up there, and we get to there and we're going, fucking, we're
How
still 10
likely
points
is
off.
it? How likely is it you think City have an off year next year, though?
It'll probably 10%, and that's down to injuries. If you go through another injury crisis like 1920 when we did win the league,
Sure.
no, we don't. I think we were always going to win the league that year, even if you didn't have the injuries, but the point gap wouldn't have been as big, and the margin wouldn't have been as big. But
Mhm.
when it was like November and you were rolling out Fernandinho and Rodri centre back pairings,
Yeah, that was
that was sort of when I think Pep just went,
trenches.
"What's the point? There's no point," sort of thing. So that's what both us and Arsenal, because I'm going to include Arsenal in this, both us and Arsenal would need to close that gap. Because, like you said, if this is a 17-18 window for you, where you get Bruno Gimares, Lucas Paqueta, add another winger on top of there, and I mean, you don't even need a defender, but you might just add another defender, because why not? Go
Mhm.
replace Kyle Walker, sort of thing. It's very difficult to compete when you've already got the difference maker in Pep.
Yeah. No, yeah, I think FT Photon makes a good point here. This was our off year, I think. You guys missed a trick on
Oh yeah,
capitalizing. I think that's a very reasonable thing to say. Our best player out for half of it, not properly replacing our treble-winning captain. The squad not being properly balanced by trying to replicate Gundogan in the aggregate by popping a striker in midfield.
Alvarez in centre mid will give you nightmares
No,
for
yeah,
the rest of your life.
I still wake up. I cry every time. I wake up screaming. I would be and which stemmed from, first of all, the failure, if you want to call it that, to get Bellingham. Subsequently followed by the failure to get Declan Rice. Subsequently followed by, not our fault to be fair, the failure to get Paquetá. We were going to get him, but then obviously the betting situation happened, so hopefully that gets resolved. But yeah, I think Photon makes a very good point. Again, in my opinion, this was the year to hit City, and it still could be the year for one of Liverpool or Arsenal to hit City. But as it stands, it's in City's hands. I think that Musty had a question.
You went, what was it, 6 games in a row without a win? That I've never seen City do that before. That was where you had to strike. When City had their blip, that's when you strike. And you always know City are going to go on a run at some point. But if you have a margin big enough, you can subsidise for that run. The difference was, us and Arsenal didn't capitalise. We drew games, we lost games. I think during that run, we drew with Brighton, we drew with Luton. I think it was just after we lost to Tottenham as well. And I think at the end of it, we drew with United. So we had a run where we dropped points in 3 games. Arsenal lost to Fulham and lost to West Ham. Another run where they dropped games, and capitalising on that blip didn't happen. Arsenal are... I don't think Arsenal had a blip this season. They've had multiple wobbles, but they
Yes.
become an overall blip.
Mm-hmm.
And you capitalised on them. We're having our blip now. You're capitalising on it. That's the difference. And it's all down to that bald man on your wall behind you. The day he leaves the Premier League, I will celebrate.
He's not going anywhere. Lifetime contract. Yeah?
I'm thinking, what will I celebrate Pep leaving more than? Because Premier League and Champions League, sure, but I reckon the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup we won in that year where we tried to go for the quad, I'd celebrate Pep even more than them.
Yeah.
He has been the biggest pain in my arse for 7 years. I had the greatest Liverpool team I will probably ever see in my lifetime. And that man has made it look bang average.
I
I
must
hate him.
say, I'm very happy that you said the year that we tried to win the quadruple, because I see far too many Liverpool fans say, "Oh yeah, the quadruple year." What, you mean the year you won 2 domestic cups? So I'm very happy you say it like that. Otherwise, I was going to have a go. So good work there. Formidable says we can't win the treble every year. Yeah, I'm sure we'll come to the both clubs as European exits in a moment. Musty asks a question which I think could segue nicely into another topic. What's Tom's sell list if he has one? Now, for argument's sake, let's assume that your boy Amarim comes in. I'm very ignorant when it comes to Amarim. All I know is that he manages Sporting and he's doing a good job in Portugal. I've got a very vague idea in respect of how he plays. As I understand it, it's a very aggressive back three and very high intensity pressing. How do you? So, and this goes hand in hand with Musty's question in terms of the sell list. What needs to happen in respect of the squad building in order to put Liverpool's current squad into a situation where they can appropriately play Amarim's style of football, assuming that you go to this, I believe it's both an in possession and an out of possession back three.
Yeah. My sell list would include. So I'll start from the back. Kelleher's probably going to go, so I'll put him there, even though I quite like him. I would, if I had a choice, he wouldn't go. But it's hard to keep a goalkeeper like that. To be honest, I'm shocked you've kept Stefan Ortega as long as you have done. To be fair, because when you got a goalkeeper that good, they should be playing first team football at a high level. So I think Kelleher could move on. I think centre back wise, we should be okay. But Gomez is the one to look out for if one was to move on. Matip's going anyway because of his knee, but Gomez is the one to keep your eye on there. I don't think any right back will move on. I could see both left backs being moved on. Simicast just isn't good, and Robertson is getting on now, and his numbers have declined. I still think he's decent. If he stayed, he'd still play a part, but his numbers from what they were when he was, in my opinion, the best fullback in the league have dropped off. So when you have a very data-driven recruitment side, they will see that and they'll go, right, let's maximize value before it goes down even more. Midfield wise, I don't. Well, no, I do see someone leave. I hope he leaves. Gravenberch, fucking waste of money.
You've only just got
Waste
him.
of money.
You've only just got him.
He's on 150 grand a week. Cost me 35 million, and I'd rather play
Cost
Bobby
you
Clark.
35 million. God, you're really out of pocket.
I know, mate. I feel I didn't even spend the money, and I feel like I've lost money. I didn't even spend the money, and I feel like I've lost it. He's on 150 grand a week, and it's just you watch it, and you're going, "Oh my god, you're so lazy. Do something." So I could see him being moved on, or at least not playing a major part under Amarim, because when you look at his midfield, it's very high intensity. Ryan Gravenberch is a lot of things. He's not high intensity.
Sure.
That's why I'm shocked we even bought him.
I know a high intensity midfielder. Good connection with Liverpool. Currently from the Johan Cruyff school of football. Currently plays for Ajax. Could be a good fit for you.
I'm all right now. Jordan Sam's been and gone. We'll see. We'll see if he can win back-to-back games with Ajax first before we even consider buying him back. And then in the attack, Salah's situation is an interesting one. I would personally give him a 2-year deal. I think a lot of Liverpool fans are overreacting with his recent form. They're saying, he's washed this, that, and the other. At the start of the season, up until AFCON, he was the top scorer, the top assister, and probably a shoo-in for Premier League Player of the Year. Should he have maintained that level of form?
Why didn't he maintain that level of form? Can I just quickly ask? Do you think?
He got injured, didn't he? He got injured.
Just because of the injury, yeah.
He got injured. We brought him back. We had to rush him back for Brentford. Well, we rushed him back for Brentford, expecting him to play 20 minutes, and then Jota got injured. So we had to bring Salah on. So I ended up doing like 50 minutes. Done the hamstring again in that game at the end of it. So then missed a further 3 weeks. And since then, he's just been so lacking sharpness, so off the boil in terms of the pace of the game, that everyone's now assuming that's a long-term thing. I'd be more concerned if he wasn't still getting the numbers. He's played 11 games post-injury, 8 of them starts, and got 10 goals and assists. That's what Salah does. If he can do that when he's not in form, when he's in form, you're going to see something really good. So I wouldn't let go of him. The one I would let go of in that front three is Diaz. I've had enough of Luis Diaz.
Yeah.
I with Luis Diaz, we are at the same spot we were when we bought him, but he's 27 now, not 24.
Yeah, I was going to say when he
That's
first came to
pointless.
Liverpool, I really liked him. I thought he was a fantastic. He looked to be a fantastic player. But you're right. I know the injury happened, but he doesn't seem to have really progressed. He doesn't seem to have kicked on or like gone up a level. If anything, it's almost like neutral / regression. If anything.
He was about to kick on in that last season. Then he got injured, and then he was supposed to come back in January, and then shock horror, we rush him back. He does it again. So then he misses up until April.
Mm.
And once he came back, it was like we'd taken 2 steps back. So we now had a worse player than the one we bought. This year, we've taken a step forward again. So you're thinking, oh, well, really good. No, we're now back at the Diaz that we bought 3 years ago, who was very exciting to watch, could beat a man, but end product was always lacking. Never played the correct final ball very often. Never had the correct finish very often. Would pop up with numbers, but it was never consistent enough and it was never reliable enough. But the difference was when he was 24, when it was his first season, he was sitting there going, he'll grow into it. It just takes a little bit of adaptation and then we'll really see him boom. All the right things are there. Now he's 27, soon to be 28. He's sitting there going, there's no wiggle room, there's no potential now. This is you. This is not good enough. He is the lowest scoring out of all of our attackers this season. Joss has played less games. Gakpo has played the majority of his games off the bench and in the midfield. And Nunes is Nunes. So if you're scoring less than Nunes, he's even got a worse conversion rate than Nunes. I didn't think that was possible, but he's got a worse conversion rate than Nunes. So
That is mad.
when I'm seeing these rumours that PSG want to pay 75 million for Luis Diaz,
You're
I'm
like,
sitting there going,
please.
I'll bite your hand. I'll drive him Paris myself. I'll get him on the Eurostar myself.
Yeah.
For 75 mil. People are going, oh, we need to sell Salah for the rebuild this summer. You get 25 million less for selling Diaz, who is half the player that Salah is and half as impactful as Salah is. It makes sense to let him go. They're the players I'd move on, and then you need to buy a couple centre backs, definitely a left back or two. I 100% want to add a DM because as much as Endo's sound,
Yeah.
he also
He's a
cannot play the
stopgap.
ball when he's being. He's crap on the ball in a sense that whenever anyone puts pressure on him, he struggles, he panics, he loses the ball. So I want someone there who is younger and more composed in possession. And if we're going to add another attacker, add one, but it needs to be a younger guy who's got upside.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be shocked if we don't have another attacker, but like a couple of the youngsters that we've got out on loan and stuff like Fabio Carvalho, they come back and fill in and do bits and pieces in that attack because ultimately in an Amorim system, Szoboszlai moves into that front three because he's not defensively capable enough to play in the pivot. And to be honest, I think Trent moves into the midfield as well because he is not. What Amorim's wing backs need to do, I don't think Trent suits that anymore, or at least the skill set anyway doesn't suit that.
Right.
Amorim's wing backs are basically guys who will occasionally get the ball, but they're more often or not just sort of diversions to stand out wide and offer width in case of a switch, but the play's not going to go through you sort of thing. That would be just
Interesting.
wasting what Trent Alexander-Arnold is. If I can get him in the pivot with the McAllister alongside him, obviously it's not the most defensively resolute pivot sort of thing, but it's a pivot that will control the ball. So if you got the ball, you don't need to defend, and has the capability of pushing into the final third if we need a goal or if we need a game changer in that position. Obviously, if I was going up against a City, Trent's going right back.
Right.
And we're putting the DM in there because I can't justify Conor Bradley at right back against City. I'll put Trent there and a couple little tweaks will get him involved in the game a little bit more. But I need that DM in there to be rock solid, as we've seen the good side of Endo this year against the big sides. You need that combative nature in there just to break the game up, especially when you're the underdog. But against like a Crystal Palace, for example, Trent's going in the midfield alongside McAllister, and you put either Conor Bradley or you buy a wing back or a winger in there because one thing Amorim's very good at is converting wingers into these wing backs for him. That's where Diaz would have played if he'd stayed, by the way. If Diaz was to stay at Liverpool, he'd become left wing back, which would be fucking
Interesting.
horrendous. So I think Gakpo will have a future because he can do a number of jobs, and I think he's more technically sound as a striker compared to what Nunes is. So against the likes of the City, I could see Amorim going for a Gakpo because he wants a striker who can keep the ball and maintain that fluid front three sort of thing. Whereas Nunes is your battering ram that you can bring on or start against low end opposition.
Yeah.
But it'll be an interesting one. I imagine this is what you felt like when Pep came in. The fact that it's going to be such a
Who will
different
survive
style.
and who won't?
Yeah, who'll survive and who won't, and how will the team play under him? Because it's such the philosophy might be the same, but it's enacted in such a different way. So Pellegrini tried to dominate games, but Pep dominates games in his way
Yes.
with a new style every season. Amorim presses high. Amorim is intense. Amorim likes to be defensively solid, but he does it in such a different way than Klopp. That's what I'm excited to see. It's
Yeah.
going to be a very exciting pre-season, and it's one that I'm actually excited for. I'll buy LFC TV this summer. I won't get the free trial. I'll buy LFC TV so I can watch all the pre-season games. Don't worry about that.
There you go. Amorim's already worth his weight in gold. Tom Little committing to a subscription service there. Alf says next year is not. If next year's not an off year, are we going to win another treble? Yeah, why not, mate? Let's go for it.
I think what's shocking is in an off year you've nearly won the treble. If you get past Real Madrid on penalties, you win the treble. No doubt in my mind about that. So in your
Maybe.
best year, you win the treble. In an off year, you win the treble. Can he just go already and stop
No.
ruining the competitive integrity of football?
Stays here forever. That's what's happening. Musty says, Nobbins, do you have a sell list? Calvin Phillips is an obvious one. Cancelo, Sergio Gomez. I don't know why he's still here. I don't know what he does. I think now
Did you not sell Calvin Phillips in January?
we've loaned him. We haven't sold him, no. And the loan's not gone well, so I don't know how much money we're gonna get back. To be honest,
you shouldn't have put him in the shop window. You should have kept him. You should have kept him behind.
I know, yeah. Leave Sergio alone, says Musty. I mean, the main one would be Bernardo Silva because I think now is the time for him to go. He's got a release clause in his contract. He's apparently wanted to go for however many years. I think that it now is a good time to move on. I think from Bernardo Silva and replace him with someone like a Paquetá who can play in a number of positions, can play out wide, etc., and offers a different dynamic to the City attack. I'm sure Tom, as a Liverpool fan, will enjoy the fact that Bernardo might be leaving.
I hate him. I hate him.
We love him.
There's 3 players I genuinely cannot stand in the Premier League: Bruno Fernandes, Bernardo Silva, Richarlison. Richarlison's top because he played for Everton as well, so I cannot stand that man. Then Bruno, then Bernardo. And Bernardo was only bottom because he's a very good footballer, and I can't help but respect that. But I just hate everything else. Oh, mate. And I'm sure there's a Liverpool player that most rival fans hate like that.
Sure.
But Bernardo for me is just,
and Sirim asks, do you want Bernardo to leave? And it's not a case of want, it's more a case of if I'm thinking about squad building, at what point do we move him on? At what point do we move on from life after Bernardo Silva? He's got that £50 million release clause. You'd imagine a club like PSG would be very interested in that. Bernardo's played in France before. It's closer to Portugal, which I believe is like where his family are from, because he's obviously Portuguese. And he also doesn't like the Manchester weather, allegedly. So it would make sense. It would make sense. It's not about wanting him to go. It's more so about being practical and thinking it might be time for him to move on. Muhar says City will win the FA Cup. We'll have to find out this Saturday if we get to the final, first of all. Colin, don't worry about being late, mate. It's all good. Formula says, I think Liverpool should sell Salah now before it's too late. Well, I suppose there might be an offer which is too good to ignore if it's, like, I don't know, 150 million quid or something.
If he doesn't sign a new deal, then sell him, because I can't let him go for free.
When does his deal expire?
The end of next season.
Oh, right. Okay, so this summer
he moves into the last 12 months in the summer.
Right, so it's make or break this summer. A decision must be made either way.
I'm in the camp of giving him a new deal. I don't see why he wouldn't accept a new deal. So I'd give him a new deal, 2-year deal, maybe with an option as well for an extra year. But if he says no, then you've got to let him go because we cannot keep letting players go for reduced value and or for free at the end of the contract, especially when you're a club that plans on running sustainably.
Hmm.
You,
Yeah.
you let a player go for free, you've got nothing to work with then. You've got no money to replace them with.
No, yeah, exactly. Jackson deletes offer full refunds for Calvin Phillips. Yeah, if only, mate. If only. Bernardo to join Gundogan. Look, Barcelona wants him. They can't even afford to sign Cancelo from us. They're talking about another loan with an option to buy. That's how in the financial mud they are. John, Oz Bernardo outstanding from him missing a penalty. Most consistent play. Oh no, yeah, I'm not coming from it from the approach of get rid of him because he missed a penalty. I think I tweeted about it. I think people blaming the penalty takers for Real Madrid's game are silly. It's on the rest of the team to win the game on the night. I'm just more looking at it from the perspective of he's wanted to leave for a while. He now has a release clause. We're looking at a different profile of midfielder. If there is a time for him to go, it now seems to be the time probably to let him go, as I say, and to move on from life from Bernardo. It's got nothing to do with his performance against Real Madrid, nothing to do with the missed penalty at all. I think people having a go at him for that are a little bit silly. But that's a nice little segue into... Oh, no, actually, but before Shafts asked this question a couple of times, if you could take one player from City and place it in the current Liverpool team, who would you pick? I mean, it's got to be Rodri, hasn't it?
Probably. I don't know if there's anyone else. I mean, I would have said Haaland last year over Rodri just because he's a clinical striker. And I think the amount of chances we create if we had a clinical striker on the end of them, you could get away with having a McAllister or an Endo in the DM. To be honest, that argument still holds a hell of a lot of weight considering how the last couple of games have gone. So it would be one of Haaland or Rodri. I mean, Foden as well. I love watching Phil Foden.
Don't touch my...
I don't know necessarily where he'd fit in, but I love watching him. I think he's a fantastic footballer. But it'd probably be one of Haaland or Rodri. If you'd asked me 6 months ago, it would have been Rodri. If you're asking me now, I'm going Haaland because I just need a clinical goal scorer.
Interesting. Emma says flip the question. So from my perspective...
I mean, it's Van Dijk, isn't it?
I don't know if it is.
Or Trent. So you could just have that one guy who's always inverting.
See, now... Here's the thing. I'm not the biggest fan of Trent in terms of... I personally, I do think that some people overblow his defensive liabilities, but fundamentally, I do think that he is a bit of a defensive liability. However, we are now, in my opinion, going to be moving towards a system next season where the 3-2 shape isn't created by a centre-half pushing into the midfield. It'll be what Kyle Walker's been doing this season, or what Gvardio's done at times, where the full-back goes to, the right-back goes to right wing, the left back goes to left wing, and then the midfielder tucks in. So I don't particularly like that system because it means that a defender has to be pushed up to attack. And as we saw in the Arsenal, Tim, I'm sure you'll agree with this, Tom, as we saw at the Etihad in the Arsenal game, who was City's most available player? It was Gvardiol. But he's a centre-back, a left wing.
He's not going to do much when he gets the ball.
Exactly.
Well, you can't expect much.
And it's the same thing with Kyle Walker. You know, he's doing his best, but when he gets into those right wing areas, what is he offering offensively? For me, the answer is very, very little. Put a player like Trent in there, who is a playmaker in his own right. That is then worth the trade-off of putting a defender in an attacking position because there is no trade-off. Like Trent has the output of an attacker. So I wouldn't play him as an inverted midfielder. I would just play him as the right back progressing up to right wing, and then the right midfielder out of possession tucks in, creates the box midfield. That would be really fun. I think I'd go for Trent.
To be honest, the one I think that City should have went for is Salah. Or in this case, it will be Salah because having Salah means Foden has to play centrally.
That would also be fun, yeah.
But then you have an output machine on the right as well, so it's not like you're just putting someone out there to do a job. It means you get Foden in his best spot, De Bruyne in his best spot, whoever out on the left, whether that is, Grealish or Doku, and then two output machines in Haaland and Salah. So if one's having a bad game, the other turns up. And your defence can still have that right. It can still have Stones inverting then, and Kyle and Josko tucking in the stuff. So I I think Salah would have been the best bet. I don't. I get your point, but I don't think Trent now at this point in his career wants to be a wing back.
No.
Don't you know? I'm sure if it was Pep telling him,
Oh, he'd do
he'd
it.
suck it up
If
and go,
if
yeah,
my
yeah,
if my bold fraud said this is what you're going to do, he'll listen. He'll listen. Don't you
yeah.
worry.
But I don't think that's the best way to get, or it's the best way to utilize Trent's skill set at this point
Sure.
because I think he needs to be sitting almost as a quarterback now,
Hmm.
sitting just slightly ahead of that back four, but spraying passes left, right, occasionally driving forward with it sort of thing.
Hmm.
Putting him as a deep line playmaker, I think that's the way.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Guys in the chat, if you're, I'm assuming you guys are City fans, which Liverpool player do you think would be best for City? If we could just like, arbitrarily cherry pick any Liverpool player now and go, boop, I'll have you. Doesn't matter about anything. Don't worry about wage, don't worry about transfer fee, don't worry about likelihood. If you could have any Liverpool player, who would you have? For me, it would be Trent. Tom thinks that Salah might be the best option. Maybe Van Dijk would be the best option. Obviously, like maybe the best defender in the world. Or maybe we just go get McAllister, Gundogan replacement. As Mus says here, I love McAllister. He can fit in somewhere. He would be a very good Gundogan alternative, a Gundogan replacement. And indeed, MCFC also says McAllister. Faraz saying Trent would be perfect versus a low block team. Robertson would be better as a wing back, says Shaff. Yeah, that could be interesting. John would take Harvey Elliott, a rogue shout there, but he's a Pep player, John says. Yeah, so the before I got distracted with that question, we were talking about the fact that obviously City went crashing out of Europe on Wednesday, and Liverpool were kind enough to follow us, and Arsenal, I guess, as well. Let's start with the City game, shall we? First of all, I'm guessing I'm assuming you watched it.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I had my first hate watch of the season, and I very much enjoyed it.
I'm sure you did. Now I don't know if you've seen my tweets about it, but I voiced my opinions on this. In my opinion, no, actually, no, I'm not going to tell you my opinion. I want to hear what you have to say. How did you see the game? Because it's been labelled, for example, as a defensive tactical masterclass by Real Madrid. Thoughts?
I can see the argument for that, but ultimately City did create a number of big chances that they spurned.
Oh,
It
look.
wasn't like they kept you quiet per se.
Oh, he
But
said the right answer, guys. He can come back. Well done. Proceed.
it wasn't like Arsenal where they just didn't let you create anything. City had opportunities, i.e. De Bruyne getting the cutback, which he blazes over the bar, or Haaland losing the ability to head the ball at any point in the second half, sort of thing. But beyond that, I think Real Madrid did a good job at holding shape. They did a good job at forcing certain players to get, in positions they want to enjoy. But it wasn't a defensive masterclass of the ilk of a Inter versus Barca,
Mm,
or I know this isn't on the same level, but Arsenal versus City was a better version of what Real Madrid did. It's just Real Madrid scored and
mm,
Arsenal didn't. So I can see the lot. I do think that some of the stuff that was said after the game by certain players, I think it was Rodri who said like there was only one team there.
yeah,
I
I
don't
did
like
agree
it
with
when
that.
players come out like that because defending like that is a viable solution. It is a viable way of playing the game. It's not something to be frowned upon. But I do agree in the sense that this wasn't a rock solid defensive masterclass where the City play for another 120 minutes and they're not scoring. I think if Haaland stayed on the pitch an extra time, that he was going to score if he wasn't too tired or whatever the reason was, because Doku was having so much joy
Hmm.
up against Carvajal, but he ultimately had no one to aim for because Alvarez is not that kind of striker.
Hmm.
Alvarez is someone who should be playing alongside of De Bruyne, running off of De Bruyne, not as the lone striker when you're up against a effective two-bus defense because he's not going to do anything. There's no space for him to exploit. That's the kind of striker he is. That's not the kind of game that needed an Alvarez. So, like I said, I don't think it was this rock solid defensive masterclass in the way that others have ran it. It was a good defensive performance. I think Rudiger had a good game.
Yeah, I agree.
Carvajal had a good game despite the fact he was on a yellow card very early. I know that Doku got the best of him a couple of times, but he done pretty well, all things considered. I thought Bellingham did a really good job as a hold up in terms of holding up the ball and getting Real Madrid out when they tried to get out, sort of thing. But City should have won that because they should have taken any of the big chances they had.
Mm-hmm.
That's where they'll be kicking themselves.
Yes, good. Correct answer. Well done. You can come back on a future show. Yes, and Jack says leak the script he sent you, Tom, says Jack. No, it is quite funny because like what you said there is basically the exact same that I said on my post-mortem. 100% agree. There's nothing. I disagree with Rodri. There is nothing wrong with Real Madrid playing that way. They are perfectly within their rights to play however they want to play. There is no correct or incorrect way to play in football. There are just preferences, and there are different philosophies. This idea that this was some sort of, and you even referenced the Arsenal game, which again I agree with, and I referenced. Arsenal came, whether it was the right decision or not, they were fantastic defensively and out of possession. That is a defensive display which should be applauded. If you concede numerous big chances, by definition, I don't think it's particularly brilliant in respect of a defensive display. And ultimately, it went down to penalties. Well done, Tom. Well done. Again, you can come back. You can come back later on. So Colin, we touched on Tom's three top summer transfers. He wants a centre back, at least one left back, probably a defensive midfielder, and maybe even a wide player as well.
I can give you the names. I want it either Inacio or Pacho. Inacio or Pacho at left centre back.
I know Inacio from FM.
Yeah. Pacho plays for Frankfurt. He's another left-footed guy.
Right.
Ryan Aït-Nouri at left wing back. I think he's really good. And either one of Morten Hjulmand, who's from Sporting, or Alan Varela from Porto.
So dipping into Portugal then.
Yeah. The manager's coming from there, and it's a league that our data analytics guys love because it's the league that matches like intensity levels with the Premier League.
Mm-hmm.
Not quality-wise, but intensity levels and stuff, and you can always train quality.
Yeah.
But intensity is always a harder thing to gain, apparently.
Oh, interesting. I would have thought it would be the other way around, but that's really interesting. It is not. Spear does says Sunderland had a better defensive display against City. Brilliant. Tom always comes across as fair. Absolutely, he does. That's why he is here. Shaft says Tom gets a subscription from me. And guys, I should have said this at the start of the stream. Tom's channel is in the description. It's right near the top if you guys would like to check him out. Obviously, it's mainly Liverpool content, but even if you're not a Liverpool fan, most of my, a lot of my subscriptions / followings on Twitter aren't City fans. I think it's important to get a rival fan's perspective on your club, and indeed on their club. That's why we've got this new series, Rival Reality Check. And also, guys, let me know in the comments of the video and also in the live chat right now. Are you enjoying this? Is it shite? Shall we keep doing this? Shall we, maybe like once a week or every other week, bring on a guest of a rival, of a rival club, like a United fan, Chelsea fan, Liverpool fan, etc. Let me know if you are enjoying it, guys. Obviously, we'll get Tom on in the future if he so desires. Musty asks, do you want Ederson on pens in the league? Yeah, well, again, I don't know if you know this, Tom, but allegedly, according to Pep, Ederson is our best penalty taker.
He took your best penalty on Wednesday.
Indeed he did.
Because he took it the right way. There was none of this little stuttering in the run up and trying to place it bottom corner. Ederson put the ball down, took 3 steps back, ran up and put it in the corner. Perfect penalty. I would watch that penalty back so many times. That is exactly what I want penalty takers to do. That's why Salah's pens grind my gears.
Yeah.
They grind my gears because he does this stupidly long run up that gets him so central that he can't get the power on it to put it in the corner sometimes. It's Ederson. I don't like it, but fair enough. I love that penalty.
Yeah,
I love that penalty. Spot on.
That's my boy. I want us to move on to the Europa League now. We do have a super chat from LB. Thank you so much, LB, for supporting the channel. What position will Paquetá play next season? Asks LB. So the good thing with Paquetá is that he can play in a number of positions. I think in the main, out of possession, he's going to be sitting alongside Rodri in the double pivot. In possession, I can see him being as one of the 8/10s, basically in the Gundogan position that we saw in the treble-winning year. But this is also a guy who can play on the left wing, has done so for West Ham. I think that he could also potentially do a job on the right wing as well as a more conservative outlet like a Jack Grealish or Bernardo Silva mould of player. So he can play in a number of positions, but the main one for me would be, as I say, in one of the 8-10 positions, in what you would describe as like the Gundogan position. Again, LB, thank you so much for the super chat. I'd like to, the revenue that these streams make from ads and super chats, I do want to distribute to my guests. So I will be making a note of that. Thank you, LB, for that chat, for supporting the channel. Mad Hat says Pep's inability to adapt his system to the game killed City. I think the main thing for me was that, Akanji was getting to so many good areas, but ultimately it's Akanji and he's not John Stones. He did well for what he could do. Good Omens is the reason why Liverpool were horrendous last night, Tom. Yeah, so that's a City European angle now. Let's I think this will be the last topic I want to touch on, because we have been going for nearly an hour. I don't want to keep Tom for too long. I'm going to ask you two questions. The second question is going to be about the performance itself and why you ultimately lost 3-1 on aggregate, only able to score 1 goal in Italy, not able to score at all at home, conceding 3, with a relatively strong team. But the first question I have is actually in respect of, for argument's sake, we assume Liverpool don't win the Premier League. So Klopp leaves Liverpool, the final season of his legacy, whatever you want to call it, ends with just a League Cup. It's still a trophy at the end of the day. How damaging is that in respect of Klopp's legacy, I guess is the word? How damaging that is in terms of the image of his Liverpool stint? Going out on a relative whimper, maybe going out not having won as much as he could have done. So that's like a two-pronged question there.
Yeah, I mean, you can look at it one or two ways. I feel that we were a very, very good team under him. And if I wanted to put the positive spin on it, Jurgen Klopp is one of only 3 managers to win the Premier League and Champions League with the same club. And that is him, Fergie, and Pep. So the 2 greatest of all time and Klopp sit on a very exclusive table. But then you've got the other side of the argument where people go, well, he's left winning the same amount of Premier Leagues as Ranieri, the same amount of Champions Leagues as Di Matteo, the same amount of FA Cups as fucking whoever, Roberto Martinez, and the same amount of Carabao Cups as Martin O'Neill. I'm sitting there going, okay. It depends what way you want to look at it. I will never look down on what Jurgen Klopp's done for my football club. He turned us from a shambolic state that was destined to finish 6th to 8th every year to title challenges, put us back on the map in Europe, remind everyone what Liverpool is on a European stage. Ultimately, he just went up against the greatest manager of all time and the greatest Premier League team of all time and came up short. I think every manager would do the same thing, because this is Pep Guardiola we're talking about. I think when Klopp goes, and should Pep stay, people will realise what the levels that Jurgen Klopp reached at Liverpool to compete on such a consistent basis and such a high standard with City. It was remarkable. I do feel though it is the right time for both parties to move on. 9 years, he looks just gone. I think the players this season, it went out on a whimper, ultimately due to the fact that we had to play a lot of football with a small squad because of injuries. So now we've got the double whammy of players are goosed, and the players that are coming back from injury are just so not sharp. You combine them together, you're getting tired, limp performances which lack quality in the key moments. It's a sad way to go, because I did think we should have at least had another trophy this year. Who knows, we might still win the Premier League. I doubt it, because Pep's now got the Premier League to focus on. He doesn't have European games midweek. But ultimately, I don't feel a sense of regret. I don't have like a sense of like, oh, well, Klopp should have done this or should have done that, because he was up against Pep. That's so difficult to do. There's a reason why no one done it in Germany, overthrew him in Germany. It took Mourinho 100 points to overthrow him in Madrid, and then that, you know, we know what happened after that with Jose. Klopp's gotten close a couple of times. He's beaten him once. You know, I can't be happier with what he's done at my club and the building blocks he's put in for the long term future of my football club. He's left the club in a much better state than he found it,
Yes.
and that's something I'm mostly thankful for, because when these great managers leave the football club, more often than not, it's in a state. There's a lot of, you know, players that need to be shipped on and this, that, and the other. Right now, we've got a squad that can compete at the top level. A squad that's got a good young core as well. I'm happy with it. I think it's the right time for everyone to move on. There won't be a sense of regret from me. It's just, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll never play down what Klopp done for my club. He just had to go up against Pep.
No, that's fair as well, and that's a very good point, I suppose, because I mean, obviously everyone rightly talks about how good Fergie was for United, and Staffy's giving us a raid. Thank you very much for that, Staffy, who is a United fan. But something that if I was a United fan, I would be very, very unhappy with was the state that Fergie left United in respect of the squad. That final season screamed of, I'm going to go out on a high on a personal level, and I don't really care who's coming in after me. I don't really care, you know, the broken pieces that have to be picked up in my absence. All I care about is squeezing the last ounce of energy from these, you know, Rio Ferdinand, Vidic, etc. They're all on their last legs. They're all cooked by the time David Moyes come in. Like, I don't know what the average age of that defence was, but Evra was finished. Ferdinand was finished. Vidic was finished. Raphael was Raphael. So Rooney was, you know, his final good season was Fergie's last season. Van Persie then got loads of injury issues. In fact, Van Persie, I believe, was signed under the guise that he was under the assumption
he was going to stay on.
Exactly. Yeah. So. Yeah, so Klopp doing that, to be fair, is an achievement in itself. I think you could definitely say. I think we've got Waffles, who is a Liverpool fan. I can see. I like your profile picture, Waffles. Thank you for joining me today. We did underachieve with Klopp because of his stubbornness and loyalty to players that aren't good enough and not being backed properly by our shite owners. Yes,
it's a part. Yeah, it's a part. I think ultimately it cost us last year. That was when his stubbornness and stuff really cost us, because a lot of players were past the peak at that point. But ultimately, his stubbornness and loyalty to players was his biggest quality. It was why we were able to get to where we got to, because he's able to get this level of performance out of players that weren't supposed to be at that level. Well, it's like what's it in narrative? Like there's a storytelling thing. Like it's his biggest thing, but it's also his fatal flaw.
right.
His redeeming quality is also his fatal flaw sort of thing.
Right. Yeah.
What makes him good is ultimately his downfall. That was how it was always going to be. In terms of the backing from the owners, yeah, I would like them to spend 200 million every window, but Jurgen Klopp's had backing. I'm bearing in mind, I'm not FSG in. I've been FSG out for years, but it's never been down to the transfer side of
Hashtag,
things.
guys, don't forget to hashtag.
Yeah, too right. But we've spent a lot of money for him. I feel that ultimately where it started to go wrong was when Michael Edwards and his guys left, and all of a sudden the impetus was put on the coaching staff.
I'm going to
identify
interject and ask you a question, which I've asked Liverpool fans in our Discord server before. I don't think I've asked you this. Who should get more credit for the last few years, Klopp or Edwards?
That is a very good question.
Look at
wow.
his face. Just look at his face.
Oh my god.
Because here's the context of that. Because obviously Klopp did well with the squad he was given. But if we think about, you know,
Edwards built the successful team.
Indeed, we think about, you know, Mo Salah, for example. Klopp didn't even want Salah.
He didn't want Mane either.
Yeah, and he didn't want Sadio Mane. So maybe it's an unfair question, but I'm going to pose it to you anyway because I'm naughty like that. Who gets more credit from the point at which Klopp joined Liverpool, in your opinion, Edwards or Klopp?
I'm gonna give it to Klopp because as good as the players Edwards has bought in, Klopp did also have to make them as good as they are and give them the right environment and the right situation to become as good as they were and develop them in that sense.
Mm.
But the biggest argument you can give for Michael Edwards being the successful one is ultimately when Edwards went and the emphasis was on the manager and his coaching staff to identify players, our recruitment suddenly became a lot more volatile and a lot more hit and miss. You'd
Yes.
have some successes, but a lot more, I don't know if that's going to work out. But when you look at the period of time which Edwards was in charge, so Edwards became our director of football in the summer of 2016. So his first window was 16-17. He
Yes.
bought in that window Mane, Wijnaldum, Matip, Karius,
Yes.
and then a couple of other like fringe players like a Clavan who was there for a year or two and stuff like that. The year after, Ox, who was very good until his injury. I don't like to
Yeah,
rewrite
that
the
was a
history of
shame.
Ox. Ox was fantastic until his injury. Robertson and Salah, and then he bought Van Dijk after he sold Coutinho.
Allison.
Then
Did
the
he
year
bring in
after that,
Allison?
Allison. He bought Allison this next summer.
Yeah.
Allison, Fabinho, Keita, Shaqiri. Keita was his only real dud.
Mm.
The year after that, we didn't actually sign anyone. He bought in Harvey Elliott on a free and Taki Minamino for 7 million in January. The year after that, he bought in Thiago, who and people will look back on Thiago and be disappointed. I am, but it wasn't like a £60 million buy. It was 20 million.
Yeah.
I can accept that gamble sort of thing. Jota and Simicas, and then his final year, he bought in Canate and Diaz.
There's a lot of
Canate
good
has been
names in
good.
that list. A lot of
Diaz
good
would have been
names.
good if he didn't get injured. And then you look beyond that, it's Nunes, Gakpo, Soboslai, McAllister, Endo, Gravenberch. McAllister, very good. Nunes, I give Nunes credit. He's been decent. He's got massive flaws, but he's been decent. I like Gakpo and I like Soboslai and I like Endo. But then you look at Gravenberch, not worked out at all. But even the ones that I like, there are problems there. There are flaws there. So it's a very tough question. I give the edge to Klopp because ultimately there's no saying what these players would become without him. He did play that big part in developing certain parts of the game, but it's on Edwards and his team for identifying these players, especially when there was pushback in certain parts of the football club against some of the names he brought up. I mean, like you said, Klopp wanted Julian Brandt, and Edwards basically told him, "No, sit down. You're getting Salah. You're going to work with Salah. You're gonna love Salah," and then
And he
worked out.
did.
I mean, it's a shame how it went between them two. Klopp wanted more power. Edwards felt like he was getting usurped, so he moved on.
Mm-hmm.
If we'd have had Edwards across the last couple of years, I do think we would have beaten you to a title.
Mm-hmm. I guess then
Because I think we missed the boat with so where it started to go wrong for us was when we didn't sell Henderson. Well,
right.
Edwards wanted to move Wijnaldum and Henderson on at the same point, and he got his wish with Wijnaldum, but then Klopp pulled rank with the owners and got Henderson a new deal. So Edwards went, "Well, what's the fucking point?"
Yeah.
And then left. If Edwards has got his way, do you know what's so mad? Do you know who we would have signed if Edwards had his way?
I
We would have
don't.
replaced Jordan Henderson with Bruno Guimaraes.
Is
That
that
was the
real?
guy
Is that true?
Edwards wanted Bruno Guimaraes to replace Jordan Henderson and Klopp usurped him. So we never got Bruno G, and then he went Newcastle. Turned out to be a 100 million quid midfielder, and we had a shit season with Henderson. And ultimately,
That's
if you want
iconic,
the
man.
biggest cruel twist of irony, Bruno Guimaraes led Newcastle to the Champions League last year instead of us, and took that Champions League spot off us, all because Jurgen Klopp usurped Michael Edwards when it came to replacing Henderson with Guimaraes.
And this is why Klopp
And
is
there's
a
a number of
fraudster.
players that Edwards had a number. Edwards was spot on with talent ID in terms of identifying good players, and his team were. So that's why I'm so glad they've come back, because it came out recently. We nearly signed Rodrigo. We had like everything done,
Yeah.
but he said he turned it down at the last minute because Real Madrid started sniffing around. But we had everything with the club agreed to sign Rodrigo for 3 million, like the year before Madrid did. So all that sort of stuff, it was massive, and that was what his team were good at. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping that it's similar when he comes back now, and
Yeah.
Amorim can match the levels of player development, because then that's how we compete.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting if Edwards comes back and Amorim pops off, or whoever comes in pops off. Will questions need to be asked about the Edwards versus Klopp debate, which I've just invented and which no one ever asked or cares about, but here we are. I asked the questions no one cares about. Metally says, it's weird how people forget FSG's first 5 years before Klopp. They made plenty of flops, then tried Moneyball before stumbling on Edwards, the likes of Andy Carroll, Benteke, there's obviously Balotelli in there, Ricky Lambert. Iconic
FSG
signings.
went wrong because they didn't know how to properly incorporate it. Michael Edwards was at the club when FSG joined, by the way. Michael Edwards was at the club in 2011.
He had a lesser role, though, didn't he?
Analytics guy.
Yeah,
he was an analytics guy. So we'd sit in on some of these meetings, but we basically created you mentioned this round to any Liverpool fan. It's like you mentioned fucking Bloody Mary. We created the transfer committee, which had Rodgers sat on it with a bunch of scouts and executives. And that just caused us so many problems. I'll tell you the best story about the transfer committee. We were going to sack Rodgers after the 14-15 season, but he stayed on for whatever reason. He got told it's either you go or your coaching staff goes. So he sacked all his assistants and brought in a bunch of old Liverpool players and stuff just to get goodwill around the football club. And then he was sat in these transfer committee meetings and he said, I want Benteke. I want a big target man up front. That's what this club needs. And Michael Edwards was now the head of analytics and stuff. And he went, no, you want Roberto Firmino. So basically, the club then went, okay, we'll buy both. And then because Brendan Rodgers was the manager, Roberto Firmino was playing right back, whilst Benteke was stinking it up front. It was only until Rodgers went and Klopp came in and was willing to listen to the data guys and Edwards and stuff that you started getting results. Rodgers was too hands-on. And when Klopp started becoming too hands-on, the same problem started to arise. But Klopp's a better manager, so the drop-off isn't as steep. But that's always the problem with it. Managers have egos. They're always going to have egos. You need an ego to be a manager of a top football club. But the manager who's able to put aside his ego when it comes to recruitment, which I don't know fully about City, but I do think Pep does. I think Pep just leaves the likes of, I can't say name, but Tixie and all them not to do that job and just bring the players for him to work with. The manager that can do that is going to have the most sustained success because you pay them guys hundreds of thousands, if not millions of quid a year to do their job. Don't try and do their job for them. That was what Klopp was doing so well up until Henderson. So well. And that was why we had so much success. That's what I'm hoping that Amorim coming in will also do. Just accept the fact that we employ these guys at the top on millions of quid a week because they're very fucking good at their job. They'll find you the right player. That's what needs to happen.
No, yeah, definitely. That's really that's a really good insight. I didn't know most of that. That's really interesting. Guys, I think we're going to wrap up shortly.
I'll give you one more as well.
Okay.
Mignolet. I remember when we signed Mignolet.
Yeah.
Do you want to know why we signed Mignolet?
Because Rodgers had a fancied Sunderland person.
No, because he made the most saves in the Premier League. That was the level of our money ball at the start. Because
that is iconic.
Because he topped the saves made metric. Everyone's like, oh, he must be undervalued. No, he topped the saves made metric because Sunderland faced the most shots. His save percentage was near the bottom.
That is class.
But we signed him because of that. And then the problems that arise when you buy a goalkeeper like that is he can't concentrate. And that was what happened with Mignolet.
That is like... That's sort of like, you know... I don't even know what analysis that is. That's sort of like what you'd expect from like a 12-year-old to sort of like conclude, oh, he did the most saves, therefore he's the best keeper. It's like, yeah, he played for a crap Sunderland team. No wonder he faced that. That's terrible.
Like we had a similar thing with Nunes as well. Nunes was signed because he overperformed XG loads. I don't know about you. I don't like buying players that overperform XG because it's not sustainable.
Yeah, not unless it's a freak like Haaland or Kane or Messi or Ronaldo.
No. It normally averages out eventually.
Yeah.
Nunes was underperforming, massive overperformance. We bought him and it's been underperformance.
Yeah, almost
so
like it was an outlier.
Get a really good overperformance or it was an outlier.
Yeah. Oh, that is class. Yeah, guys, we're going to wrap it up here. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
I didn't even have to talk about yesterday. Get in.
Please let us know if you enjoyed this in the live chat right now, and also in the comments. Please let us know. Appreciate this is obviously mainly a Man City channel, so there's obviously going to be not as much interest in it compared to the purely Man City live streams. But I do think it is important to get rival perspectives on City, and also I think it's important for us to learn more about their club from a fair, objective, or as objective as we can be, analytical perspective. That's, as I say, that's why I've invited Tom on. Also looking to inviting Staffy on, who's a really good United fan, Connor, who's a really good Chelsea fan, and I haven't really thought about other guests of rival fans yet. But if there's anyone you think suits that bill, i.e., again, someone who wants to talk more about football rather than just sort of like shout at a camera, then please get your suggestions in. But again, let us know if you did enjoy today's stream, slightly different one. And again, if you didn't enjoy it, I will stop doing inviting guests on. But if you did enjoy it, then we will keep doing them. Once again, Tom's channel is in the description, so feel free to go check him out. But until next time, guys, Tom Little has been Tom, I imagine. I have been Nobbins, and we will catch you guys next. In fact, live streaming on Twitch in an hour. Twitch is in the description. I'll see you guys later.